Japanese woman discovered a rare tumor inside her ovaries. It's called a teratoma, and it can grow muscles, hair, and even bones and teeth. However, this teratoma also developed limbs, eyes, and a brain. In other words, it had pretty much everything it needed to become a conscious creature on its own, which is terrifying.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. How you guys doing? If you guys are brand new here to the channel, you guys don't know what we do, let me break it down for you guys, man. We talk about the most scariest and creepiest videos on the net, on the web, from YouTube videos to TikTok videos, IG reels, Facebook, anything weird, usual, and unexplained you can find right here on this channel. Just want to thank all my supporters, man, who come back to the videos each and every single day, watching the videos entirely, commenting down below, even if it's just to say hi, guys, and most importantly, hitting that thumbs up button on that video, man. It's very important. Pushes us into the algorithm, man, so we can find other people who are seeking this content. Found this video for you guys today, man. Let's do what we do best. Seekers, stay with me, y'all. Don't leave me hanging, man. Yeah, I know what we do. Let's seek the truth.
If you're thinking about going skiing or snowboarding this winter, you might want to watch this video. On March 2023, Francis Zuber was skiing on Mount Baker in Washington when he randomly noticed a snowboard just laying on the snow. As he got closer to the snowboard, it began moving around, so he realized that there was someone stuck beneath the snow. The man trapped beneath 6 feet of snow was 40-year-old Ian Staker, who fell headfirst in a tree well. And a tree well is an area around the base of a tree that gets filled with snow, so if you happen to get yourself in there, it is difficult to get out. Ian was stuck beneath 6 feet of snow for about 10 minutes before Francis spotted him. Francis began removing the snow with a shovel that he had in his bag, and you can see in this video how much snow there was and how deep Ian was in there. Ian said that he was pretty sure he wasn't going to make it out on that day, especially because he had been under the snow for about 10 minutes already, and he knew that if he went over 15 minutes, he would suffocate. In fact, Ian would go on to say that one of his close friends passed away a couple of months earlier after he fell in a tree well on that same mountain. And what's absolutely incredible, and what some people call a coincidence, is that Francis, the man that saved his life, wasn't even supposed to be skiing on that side of the mountain on that day, and the only reason he was there was because he ran into some of his friends and decided to go skiing with them on that mountain.
These are the
Believe in fate, seekers, man. Was it fated for him to be on that mountain that day, like I said, to save that man? For that man, I think, to be in not falling that same exact tree well as his friend, but to even speaking, I guess, snowball on that mountain after what happened to his friend, that was a sign right there. Sometimes you gotta pay attention to the sign, seekers. You never know.
strangest things found inside people's bodies. Part 7. In 1999, an Indian man became the world's first pregnant man, even though he was born a biological male. You see, one day, Sanju Bhagat was dealing with a swollen stomach and was having difficulty breathing. So he went to the doctor to get it checked out, where they discovered a large mass inside him. When they took him in for surgery, they found gallons of liquid inside his stomach and an underdeveloped fetus. This was because Sanju was once a twin and consumed the other sibling inside the mother's womb, but this wasn't discovered until this moment. Next, in 2003, a Japanese woman discovered a rare tumor inside her ovaries. It's called a teratoma, and it can grow muscles, hair, and even bones and teeth. However, this teratoma also developed limbs, eyes, and a brain. In other words, it had pretty much everything it needed to become a conscious creature on its own, which is terrifying. And lastly, in 2014, an Australian man named Dylan Thomas came home from a vacation in Bali when he discovered a painful red line going from his belly button up his torso. And after 3 days of pain, doctors discovered that there was a spider crawling under his skin. Apparently, Thomas had just had an appendectomy performed on him, and the spider somehow snuck its way into his skull. Yeah, have fun trying to sleep tonight.
Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 1. Famous poet Edgar Allan Poe married his 13-year-old step-cousin at the age of 27. What are you doing, Step Poe? There is a legal pee-pee size in Iceland, and this comes from the Middle Ages, where a man and a woman got married, and on their wedding night, the woman was so disappointed with how small it was that she took him back to the church to get a divorce. And because of her, a law was made that requires you to be 3 inches to get married. During times of war, some armies would wipe their poop on their weapons so that when they stab their enemies, they get that extra poison damage. There are many letters between Benjamin Franklin and various women that suggest that he might have had a fart fetish. The person who wrote Frankenstein lost her virginity on the top of her mother's grave. Great writer, but terrible funeral manners.
Yeah, those facts are blowing my reality.
Animals discovered in 2024, part 1.
Firstly, I present to you the skeleton panda sea squirt that was recently discovered off the coast of Japan in 2024. These sea creatures can live up to 7 to 30 years, and scientists really aren't too sure why they look like this, but they named them skeleton panda sea squirts because they literally look like baby skeletons dressed up for Halloween. This is awesome. Next, breeders in the US have recently just created a new hybrid cat. Meet the XL Bully Cat, which is mixed with the Sphinx and Munchkin cat. However, governments are already saying don't buy this cat due to its health problems by not having any hair and short legs. Yeah, I was not expecting this in 2024. Finally, in June, researchers found a new species of piranha-like fish, which looks like this right here. And they decided to name this fish Sauron, after Lord of the Rings, because these researchers seriously believe it looks just like it. And I mean, they're not really wrong.
Isn't that scary to think about, Seekers, man? Like, we still discovering new animals, new breeds in the oceans. That goes to show you how vast the ocean is, man. And if you really put it into context, it's the year 2024 and we still discovering new things about the ocean. It makes you wonder what else is lurking down there, man. That's why I don't be ruling out mermaids and sirens and things like that when I be watching this with you guys, because you truly never know. That's it.
Here are some dirty history facts I can guarantee you were never taught, part 2. If you ever told your history teacher any of these, they definitely go, what the fuck? According to private investigator Fred Stash, JFK was apparently a one-pump wonder, if you know what I mean. Ladies, for this one, I'm so sorry. For birth control, the Egyptian used a mix of ingredients, specifically 2, which included crocodile poop mixed with honey, and they would put it, yeah. Next, large eggplants, if you know what I mean, on the males of ancient Greece, were actually a sign of stupidity. Hence why all the statues have small ones, as it's actually a sign of being an intellect. Fuck! Stories go that King Tut was actually excited when he was mummified. That is definitely what I call a 2,000-year-old happy sleep. And finally, the whoopee cushion, revolutionary in today's society. But it actually dates back to the 14-year-old Roman Empire Elagabalus, when his whole legacy became inventing the whoopee cushion and pranking his dinner guests. Legend.
True prank legend, bro. Clap it up for him.
These are dirty animal facts you wish you never knew about, part 3. Up first, petting birds actually turns them on. They will start panting and shaking, and sometimes even puke on you. So the next chance you get to pet a bird, you might want to think twice about doing it. Next up, frogs sometimes might make a home out of elephant's poop. They do this because it provides shelter from the sun, and all the bugs crawling around in it make for an easy quick snack for the frog. This is absolutely disgusting, and it kind of ruined my day. Next up, several species of birds keep cool by pooping on themselves. It's called heroichosis, and it's how some birds like storks, condors, flamingos, and vultures keep cool. It seems to do the same thing as sweating, except that instead of sweat, these birds dribble poop down their legs.
Hey, man. But there's something new every day. Birds poop on themselves to keep themselves cool. He said 7 species. You're going to have to look that up. Because I never do that.
This is why you need to really monitor your child when they're online, especially when they're using websites like Roblox.
Talk about it.
On October 17th of this month, the Sheriff's Department had received a phone call about a 2-month-old baby who had been dropped on the ground and was suffering serious injuries by their 10-year-old sibling. The one who made this phone call was Gulf Coast Kids House, and they do forensic interviews and medical examinations of children who are suspected of abuse. When the 10-year-old was having the forensic interview, she described that she dropped the baby on the floor at the direction of someone that she met online, and she was actually very terrified of this person, and and she felt like if she didn't follow the instructions of this person, that person was going to come after her. It was revealed that the person that was communicating with this 10-year-old was 36-year-old Tara Alexis Sykes, and they were communicating on Roblox. Tara was giving the 10-year-old various methods on how to harm this baby, including drowning the baby, putting the baby in boiling water, and dropping the baby on the ground. Tara also gave instructions to the 10-year-old on how to unalive the adults in the house by cutting their throats. She then told the 10-year-old to douse the sheets with aerosol spray and set the adults on fire. The 10-year-old allegedly set out some of the instructions. For example, she dropped the baby on the floor and she doused the sheets, but she was unable to set the adults on fire. Tara was arrested and charged with attempted murder and is being held without bond. It was revealed in court documents that Tara is actually related to the 10-year-old girl, but they did not reveal on what kind of relation. Thankfully, the 2-month-old is expected to survive, and the police did not announce any charges against the 10-year-old.
Imagine.
Bro. And to find out at the end that she was freaking related to her, man, she was still making her do the things like that, goes to show you, man, people, you truly never know what they're capable of. And you gotta be careful, man, when your kids playing Roblox online. Gives them direct access to people that they should not be in contact with.
Fun fact, America used to have tortoises all over the place, but that changed the moment folks found out how good turtle meat tastes. You know how bad it was? They didn't get a scientific name for hundreds of years, literally because the sailors traveling with them kept eating them before they made it back to London. So the giant tortoise population in Hispaniola Island was down ghastly. We're talking 12 females and 2 males away from getting discontinued permanently. That wasn't until they found a third male. Diego. Diego peeped the census and knew what time it was. He locked in. They said, go, Diego, go, and he came and went, and came, and went, and came, and then went.
Okay.
3 males were brought into the breeding program to try to save the species, and Diego proceeded to score a career high in spreading thighs. More rounds than Nick's cannon, the shell hefner got so active that he spawned over 900 children and fathered 40% of the turtles born in the breeding program. Immortalizing him as a tortoise that laid so much pipe, he carried the species. But there's something I didn't tell you. I said there were 3 males, but it was really Diego and friend, because turtle number 3 literally couldn't get laid if his species depended on it. Boy is more interested in Diego, but speaking of Diego, remember, I said 40%. That means turtle number 2 put in more work than he did. That turtle was E5, and I'm not a mathematologist, but numbers say he contributed 60%. But apparently, because Diego was a bigger and louder personality, he stole all the clout. Being named E5 probably didn't help. Either way, the turtle tag team saved their entire species, which now has more than 2,300 on the island. And both tortoises have since retired, and were returned back to Hispaniola to live with their turtle progeny, almost 80 years after they were first recruited. Moral of the story? Closed mouths don't get fed, especially when you're named after one of Elon's kids.
Putting up freaking numbers, bro. They carried into their species, man. They saved them all. Tag team too, bro.
Was Buddha considered a Christian saint? The Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church both honor 2 saints named Balaam and Josephat. On closer inspection, the story of this Indian prince, Josephat, appears strikingly similar to the life of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. But how did this come to be? Well, the story originates from an early Christian adaptation of Siddhartha Gautama's life. As Buddhism traveled through Central Asia, its teachings spread along the trade routes to the Middle East. Here it was adapted into other belief systems like Manichaeism. In the 8th century, Islamic scholars translated a Buddha biography into Arabic as Kitab Bilawar wa Buddhasaf, which means the Book of Bilawar and Buddhasaf. By the 11th century, it was translated into Greek, where it became known as Balaam and Josephat. This adaptation recast the Buddha story into a Christian moral tale, with Josephat as a prince who renounces wealth after guidance from Balaam, a Christian hermit. This version aligned with the Christian teachings on renunciation and devotion.
Artifact porn, part 30. This is an ancient burial mound in Marathon, Greece, that contains the ashes of 192 Athenians who perished in the Battle of Marathon more than 2,500 years ago. There's an extremely rare surviving piece of Tyrian purple dye that was found in the remains of an ancient Roman bathhouse. The color was used to create the famed purple clothing of Roman emperors and was extremely difficult to make.
Just 1 ounce of Tyrian dye took 250,000 snails to produce,
Ooh.
as it was said to be worth more than 3 times its weight in gold. These photos show the incredible evolution of ancient Greek statues over the span of just a few hundred years. Just this past summer, a tourist at a beach in Bulgaria noticed a beach bar table that looked considerably old. Law enforcement soon called in some archaeologists who eventually identified the item as a 1700-year-old ancient Roman sarcophagus. Information about the artifact's history and how it ended up on a beach resort remain unclear.
That's the true question. How did it end up there?
You know the chilling child abduction story behind the Amber Alert system?
No.
It was January the 13th, 1996 in Arlington, Texas. Amber Hagerman was just 9 years old. She'd been biking around the area near to her nan's house with her 5-year-old brother Ricky. She had a new bike that she'd been given for Christmas, so she was really enjoying playing on it. Now the pair were cycling up and down. They weren't going too far, but it was obviously a different time back then, and children used to just play freely outside. However, within seconds, this innocent bike ride would turn deadly. Ricky told his family later that he saw his sister bike into a car park and then vanish. Another eyewitness from the scene saw much more than that. A man in his 70s reported seeing the child get grabbed by a man in a black truck. The man looked in his 20s or 30s, according to the witness. The witness then obviously promptly phoned police. Despite a big search for the little girl, they had absolutely no idea where she'd gone. They kept hunting and found nothing until a dog walker stumbled upon something horrific 4 days later. Tragically, in a nearby creek was little Amber's body. She'd been stripped and her throat cut by either a knife or a screwdriver. Her body was found less than 5 miles away from where she was snatched. Now, police desperately searched for leads but came up with absolutely nothing. The local community were really anxious to try and do something to help. In the absence of being able to track down Amber's killer, a local woman, Diane Simone, rang into a local radio station. She wondered if a national alert system could be created to send information to people about missing children, like they do for severe weather warnings. With that, the AMBER system was born. The acronym stood for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response. Tragically, Amber's murder still remains unsolved 28 years later. However, the Amber Alert created in her honor has gone on to save many more children who may have otherwise ended up dead.
2024 just got even crazier. Part 17. Firstly, just recently, while a tourist was at a beach bar in Bulgaria, he noticed that the table they were using looked odd. And it looked so odd, he called the authorities. Well, it turned out they were actually using a 1,700-year-old Roman coffin as a table. Yeah, the table was then taken away by the authorities, and my question is, how did they even come across this ancient artifact?
Yeah.
Next, Mountain Dew just announced that they are changing their logo back to their similar retro style on all of their products by 2025. You know, this is one of the first logo changes I actually like. Finally, just a couple weeks ago, the world's fattest cat, named Crumbs, who was 38 pounds, was sent to a fat camp to help Crumbs lose weight. Well, unfortunately, the fat camp was just too much for Crumbs, and Crumbs died after just weeks of being at the fat camp. R.I.P. Crumbs. What did they do to you?
R.P. Crumbs, man, down below, bro. How he get sent to a fat camp? He's supposed to lose weight, not lose everything, man. That's crazy.
Crazy tech facts you won't believe. Google rents goats to mow their lawns instead of machines. Over 90% of the world's currency only exists in digital form. The first computer virus was created in 1983. The first camera took 8 hours to capture a single photo. Can you believe we used to wait 8 hours for a single photo? Now with Send It, you can create AI images of yourself in seconds. It turns your Ask Me Anything answers into AI pictures. Someone asked me where I'd love to travel to, and Send It made this. You have to try this out. Download Send It and unlock your AI clone. Things that have been banned across the world, Part 3. Japan made obesity illegal in 2008. Iceland made strip clubs illegal in 2010. China made time travel illegal in 2011. Blue jeans have been banned in North Korea since 2010.
Blue Jeans, man. Don't they have, like, I'm about to say, isn't it a music group named Blue Jeans? The reason I know that's because, you know, FaZe Jason, bro, he blew up the freaking TikTok that went viral with the Blue Jeans song, so. But they freaking banned Blue Jeans in 2010. Time travel in China 2011. What they hiding from us, bro? And obesity's illegal in Japan. That's crazy that they made obesity illegal, bro.
18-year-old girl named Donna lived with her father, and ever since her mother died, she depended on her father for everything. One day, Donna's father left for a business trip and said he wouldn't be back until later that night. Later that day, Donna got home from school and watched TV, and when the clock struck midnight, she noticed her father wasn't back, so she went to bed. That night, Donna had a dream where she was standing on a busy highway. She then saw her father trying to yell something to her. She couldn't hear him, but noticed he looked sad and was desperately trying to communicate with her. She could barely make out what he was saying, but it sounded like, "Don't open the door." Donna then woke up to someone ringing the doorbell. She then went to the door and looked through the peephole and saw her father's face outside. He was staring right at her and the doorbell was still ringing. She was about to open the door when she looked through the peephole again and noticed her father's eyes were wide open and he looked terrified. The doorbell then continued ringing as Donna begged her dad to answer her. She then yelled, "I'm not opening the door until you answer me." The doorbell kept ringing, but her father refused to answer her. Donna then sat in the corner next to the door crying and listening to the doorbell ringing. She then fell asleep and woke up in the morning. She then got up and looked through the peephole and her father was still there. She then opened the door and saw something truly horrifying. Her father's severed head was hanging from a nail above the door and there was a note attached to the doorbell that said, "Clever girl."
Don't open that door, man, unless you hear a response. That's the moral of the story, that what I took from it. You never know who's lurking. That's an edit, bro. We see through that.
This will blow your mind. In a world's first, researchers at Osmo Labs have achieved the teleportation of smell. I mean, do you realize how crazy that is? Let me put it this way. So, as of right now, humans have only figured out how to teleport two of our senses. Sound, with the telephone or speakers, and images with the screens that we look at all day. And we've done that because we've discovered a way to capture those senses digitally and then turn them into data that we can then send instantly. But now, they've managed to do that with smell. So hypothetically, once they're able to replicate this process on machines outside of the lab, not only one day could you send someone a smell like you send them an image or a voice note. Oh my lord, the businesses that are going to come out of that one. I'll let the comments handle that. But also, and here's the craziest part, they say that by digitizing scent, they've effectively given computers a new sense. You might wake up in 2030 and your iPhone's going to tell you stink. Go get a shower. Now, the first smell they ever digitized was fresh plum. They captured the scent molecules in a digital format and then reprinted the exact same smell on the other side of the room, which came out looking like a regular clear liquid. And I guess that begs the question, what's going to happen to all of these expensive colognes once you can immediately reproduce them? Osmo Labs CEO on Twitter said, "Holy moly, I am still processing the magnitude of what we've done."
19-year-old woman whose body was found burnt inside one of these walk-in ovens in Walmart. Let's hear what the employees have to say about all of this.
Okay, these ovens are so hard to shut from the outside. You have to push them. I'll show you.
Okay.
See that? You have to push it to click it. Now, watch me walk in. Look, I can touch both sides. You can touch both sides. You scrape the floor. You have to clean the floor all the time. There's no way this door, they're not self-shutting. You could even say you swing it open too hard when you get something out of the oven. Let's see what happens.
Alright. Not closing.
This is one of the good ovens I've worked with. I've worked with 7 different stores over the 8 years. There are stores where they don't even latch. You have to hold it shut while it bakes for 30 minutes. There are stores where it pops open. You have to shut it, pops open, shut it, pops open, shut it. There is no way that this girl locked herself into one of these ovens while cleaning it. No way possible. There's no way possible. Let me just show you the emergency button.
Emergency button 2?
Pops the door open. Pops the door open. In my opinion, there's There's no way she did that on her own.
So I've been seeing plenty of these videos where Walmart employees are showing us how these walk-in ovens work. But just to be clear, all the ovens in these Walmarts, depending on the location, are a bit different. They're not identical, but a lot of the features are almost the same. Something I consistently hear from the Walmart employees is that the door does not close on its own. Unless you try to close it with a lot of force, it doesn't just close and lock. There's also this inside the door, so if anyone was to get stuck, they can just easily open it and get out. Every video that I've watched created by a Walmart employee who works with these walk-in ovens insinuate that this young woman did not get stuck and that something else happened.
What do you guys think? Something else happened?
By growing brains in a jar and connecting them to a computer made from stem cells that were stimulated in a special way to form neural tissue, which grew and eventually formed structures and even brainwave activity similar to that of a premature human baby. They then hooked up this brain into a computer, connecting it into a virtual world where it learned to play Pong completely from scratch. I want you to realize what this means. Like, this isn't a computer bot that was pre-programmed to know exactly how to play the game. That's easy. It's an organic brain that they grew themselves that was given Pong with no instructions, and it just taught itself how to play. Which is honestly nothing new. That's just AI. But this is organic AI, which happens to learn quicker and is also more energy efficient than traditional AI. It learned to play Pong in about 10 to 15 rallies, when a regular computer AI would take around 5,000. Albeit the computer AI can simulate those 5,000 rallies much quicker, but that takes a lot more computing power, which is sort of our main bottleneck with AI at the moment. Energy. This is Organoid Intelligence. Take human brain cells, grow them in a petri dish, and then use computers to train them just like AI. Naturally, there are ethical concerns rising as there is surmounting evidence showing us that these are conscious, like a human. Even the scientists working on it themselves admit these organoids are sentient. They took it a step further and tested out these organoid brains inside real physical robots, feeding them the sensory input of everything the robot experiences. And since the computer chip running it is organic brain matter, this technically, by definition, is a cyborg. Then there are companies like Final Spark that let you rent server space on these organoid brains, which essentially act like organic CPUs. You can even see live streams of the brain computers you're renting out. And now this next part right here, what they're doing here might actually prove simulation theory. So they have this virtual butterfly simulation that's controlled by the organoid brains, meaning the brains feel and experience everything the butterflies do. Again, the brains weren't trained or programmed how to be a butterfly. Just like they did with Pong, they were just fed the sensory feelings of being butterflies and kind of figured out themselves how to flap their wings and just exist. Much the same way you weren't pre-programmed to walk or talk. You experienced sensory inputs in the forms of sight, sounds, touch, and learned. Taught yourself along the way. This is an organic brain being fed computer data to make it believe it actually exists in a simulated world, and it's also likely sentient. This company essentially just created the Matrix for butterflies, and its consciousness is available for you to rent out. And when no one's using it, it still just continues to exist with no human interaction whatsoever. If the brains really are conscious, as the scientists suggest, they're not going to know they're this organoid computer brain in a lab hooked up to a virtual simulation. They're going to believe that they really are that butterfly. If that's the case, what's stopping all of us from being our own organoid brains in some lab in a different dimension? Meaning this, everything we see and experience right now is our own simulation that we've been plugged into, except we're not butterflies, we're humans. And everything we do, every decision we make is not by our own free will, but by some, I don't know, fifth dimensional entity renting server space in our brains. Just the same way this Final Spark neural platform lets us do. And when we sleep, maybe our idle brain computational power is used for other purposes, which we experience as dreams. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. You gotta sleep tonight. Are we really brain organoids, existing in our own petri dishes, connected to and experiencing a fully virtual, simulated world? Because we just pulled it off. And according to simulation theory, if we're capable of creating virtual simulated realities, then chances are we're already living in one.
He was spitting, bro. Gave me some new information, man. I'm definitely going to dive into, man. Are we in a reality, bro?
athletes who were caught cheating, part 2. In
Talk about it.
1994, on the day before the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, title holder Nancy Kerrigan was filmed finishing a practice skate, but just seconds later she was screaming in pain on the ground after a man with a police baton attacked her. The attack severely bruised her knee, which made her unable to compete. Her longtime rival Tonya Harding went on to take first place and was selected alongside her for that year's Winter Olympic skating team. However, police soon discovered that the attack on Kerrigan had been ordered by a bounty hunter. In a shocking twist of events, Tonya Harding's ex-husband Jeff Gillooly and her once bodyguard Sean Eckhart were labeled as the culprits. They'd hired the bounty hunter to break Kerrigan's leg, removing Harding's competition in the upcoming events. Although she claimed she had no part in the conspiracy, Harding later admitted that she knew her ex-husband had been involved, but she'd failed to report it. But karma had the last laugh. At the games, a malfunction with her skates saw Tonya placed down in 8th, while Kerrigan managed a silver in 2nd.
That goes to show you, bro. That's proof of karma right there, man. She knew what was gonna happen, man, to take out the competition. She ain't saying nothing about it, and she still got 8th place. She didn't even get top 1 or 2, man, for the gold or silver medal. That's karma, seekers, right there, in 4K.
Here are some things that 99% of humans can't do. Are you part of the 1%? The ability to raise eyebrows is an evolutionary trait that all of us can do. While pretty much everybody can raise their eyebrows, only 1% of the world can raise one eyebrow at once. Did you know that 99% of the world can't lick their elbow? So you probably can't do this, and I bet you're probably doing it right now. However, for some people, this task is actually really easy, which is due to being born with really flexible bodies or practicing a lot of gymnastics. Only 2% of people can wiggle their ears. Unlike other face muscles, ear muscles are operated by a completely different part of your brain. If you try to use your face muscles to move your ears, it's never gonna work. So you're gonna have to raise your eyebrows and smile widely to lift your ears. And if you're lucky, you might be one of the few people that can move them.
I can't. Seekers, can you guys do any of those things? I think I can redo the elbow joint. I think actually I can. But I can't do the ear joint. That's completely different. Or that one eyebrow, what the Rock be doing. I cannot do that. Tell me down below if you can do that, man. I'm actually curious if any of you guys can do that.
These people have died. Part 5. In 2000, Burger King managers Lisa Goetz and Lori Thomas staged a fake robbery of the restaurant where Lori took the money and Lisa acted as the victim, bound with duct tape and trapped in the walk-in cooler. Unfortunately, police didn't arrive until the next morning, where they found Lisa, who died of hypothermia. According to investigators, Lisa could have easily freed herself from her bindings and escaped the unlocked refrigerator, as she had no signs of forced restraint and the duct tape was loose. In 1998, during a heated marital dispute, a 25-year-old man picked up his 20-year-old wife and threw her off their 8th floor apartment balcony. Somehow the woman became entangled in the power lines below, and in what may have been an effort to save her or maybe finish her off, the man leapt from the balcony aiming for the wires. He missed the power lines completely and plunged to his death, and the woman managed to swing over to a nearby balcony and was saved.
That was an insane case, especially the last one. She had to aim for the power lines to completely miss, but she made it?
This man was frozen in ice for 3 days, and you won't believe what happened to him. His name is David Blaine, and he went inside a block of ice for 3 days with no food and only one tube supplying him with air and water. At the 61-hour mark, he was beginning to lose consciousness, but he couldn't go to sleep because if he leaned on the ice, he would have gotten severe frostbite. Unfortunately, this led him to have extreme hallucinations. Near the end of the stunt, he called his girlfriend over, but she was immediately pulled away. This made him think that he was dead and that she couldn't see him. After 63 hours, they decided to cut him out, but they said he was so delusional, he tried to grab the chainsaw. He finally made it out, but he was so physically and emotionally tired that he couldn't walk or talk. David was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, and after 1 month of therapy, he finally made a full recovery.
If you're watching horror movies and feel like something's watching you, this could be why. A family from Ecuador enjoyed watching horror movies together in their living room. But one night, during their late horror night session, they began to feel a strange presence with them in the living room. Scared, thinking they might have attracted an evil entity into their home, they placed a camera in their living room, and this is what they captured.
Ahí yo fue que ya comencé a sentirme mal. ¿Por qué? Porque mira, a ver, eso yo se lo vi claramente así, de reojo.
Oye, ¿por qué se
mira, ¿sí viste? Eso sí.
family members is startled as a dark figure can be seen moving behind him. After this, objects began to fly across the room.
La puerta ahí como la tenía trancada. No
Mira,
Sí, ¿qué pasa?
And they just get out of there. The family will later call in a priest to bless the house, but the hauntings persist.
This is the stuff of nightmares that's like straight out of the
Is that legit, Seekers?
It has a lot to do with the dark web. Sometime around 2004, when people were just starting to explore what would later be known as the dark web, they would talk about a woman that would show up on your screen, except it wasn't a woman. It was a distorted mask of a woman's face. And what this person would do is that they would recite your full name and your address, and then say, "I'm coming for you." And then the whole screen would go dark.
This is what they mean when they say only 5% of the ocean has been explored. What kind of fish is this?
Did that fish just eat her out? I mean, like I said, it's true. We only explore like 5% of the ocean, so there could be some species down there that we haven't even seen before. Have you seen that fish before, man? I sure haven't. The more you know. That's scary.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Part 16. Kangaroos are absolutely terrifying, and if you mess with one, it will likely lure you into the water and attempt to drown you. There's an abandoned Disney park that you aren't allowed to go to, and it was shut down in 1999 because it was infested with free-roaming alligators. The animals were being abused, and an 11-year-old boy died from a flesh-eating bacteria found in the park's waters. In the movie The Wizard of Oz, the lion's costume was made out of a real skinned lion. This is the John Lawson house. No one knows who lives there, but every single day, there are several female mannequins sitting on the front porch wearing a variety of clothing. Their positions and outfits change daily, and many believe this is meant to convey some sort of message. And in 1871, a train crash took place just 200 feet away from the home, killing 22 people. And these mannequins are always pointing toward the crash.
Why? Is that a hyena or something?
Yeah, the hyena's a girl. So many may know, female hyenas have a fake meat hose that looks almost identical to the real thing. And for those that don't, nah, actually, that's the lead. They have a pseudo-phallus that they give birth from, and yes, it's as traumatizing as you think, and yes, the very process of birth can end up doing the exact opposite for everyone involved. Below key, having a built-in flesh strap might explain why hyenas are exactly the way they are. So for most animals, life pretty much comes down to the 3 F's: food, fights, and... So a lot of times when male animals run a fade, it's for the goal of female validation. But hyenas having a female 5th leg means they have a natural crotch block. It's basically anti-mating hardware that means the no-pants dance can only happen if she allows it. So unlike things like lions or bears, there's really no reason for male hyenas to want smoke with each other when getting it in is already RNG. Pun intended. And it's believed having coitus completely out of their control is why male hyenas are way less aggressive and even have less testosterone than the females. Meanwhile, the females are more on go than a green light. And why hyena sisters are way more likely to put each other on a t-shirt. And with them being pack animals with a whole social ladder, the Walking Comedy Club had to become more aggressive just to give their cubs a chance at life. Matter of fact, that's probably why they have more testosterone. So yeah, moral of this video. Lion King did hyenas every type of dirty, but they got it right when they had Shanti giving orders. And now you know why.
This is why you should be scared of that one person you're talking to online that you're about to meet in real life. Blanca, a 51-year-old Mexican woman, was looking for love. She met a Peruvian man named Juan Villafuerte on an online gaming app. And on the last day of October, she traveled 3,000 miles to Lima, Peru to meet him. She thought that he could be the one. On November 7th, while in the beach city of Huacho, where Villafuerte lived, Blanca spoke to her niece on the phone and told her that the relationship was going well and that she was in love. Then, she went silent. Her niece suspected something was wrong after not being able to get into contact with her. She called for help on Twitter and reached out to Juan Villafuerte, who said that Blanca got bored of him and left to find a plane ticket back to Mexico, as he could not provide the life she wanted. But the truth was much, much darker. On November 10th, Peruvian authorities found a severed finger on the beach of Huacho. Then in the following days, they found a faceless head and then an arm. and then a torso with no organs inside of it. They eventually identified Blanca Arellano via her family by the ring on her finger. Juan Villafuerte was arrested on charges of human organs trafficking. Authorities found traces of blood all over his apartment, and he reportedly posted TikTok videos of human organs days after Blanca's disappearance. Creepy last words people said right before dying. A nursing assistant said that she was in a long-term patient's room changing the sheets. The patient would periodically look behind her. She asked the patient what was wrong, and the patient looked in her eyes and asked, "He doesn't scare you?" The nurse was confused, and she asked her who she was referring to, and the patient said, "The big man in the top hat. He's standing right behind you." She said that she doesn't think that she has ever finished changing a bed sheet and repositioning a patient as fast as she did that night. She refused to go into that room by herself for the rest of her shift. Linda Johnson, a former nurse, said that she had a gentleman in his late 90s who was dying. He started screaming blood-curdling screams, so they raced to his room. He was screaming that the room was on fire and that there was a man with large horns peering out of the flames. He kept pointing to one wall, saying that it was on fire. The nurses turned on the lights and tried to calm and console him, but to no avail. Instead of being consoled, Linda said that he told her that she was on fire and that he could see her being consumed by flames. Linda said that it was the creepiest thing that has ever happened to her. The doctor was notified, but nothing relieved the patient's terrifying hallucinations. He died soon after. Cynthia said that several years ago, her 20-year-old daughter had brain surgery. She got an infection of the spinal fluid. She was there in grave condition for a month. Cynthia never left her daughter's side. One night, the worst night at this point, she asked who the man in black was that was standing by the bathroom, and why Cynthia's deceased brother, the girl's uncle, was standing next to her at the side of the bed. Cynthia immediately got the chills. She told her daughter, "They're not here." Then she told her brother and the man in the black, whom she couldn't see, "You both have to go now. She's not ready to go, and I'm not ready to let her go." After that night, her daughter started to get better and better each day. Today, her daughter is doing well.
September 25th, 1981, something very strange took place up in the Smoky Mountains. This is a picture of Pauline Melton, and it would end up being one of the last known photos of her. Because while Pauline was up there, she was with two hiking companions. They described that she, all of a sudden, without explanation, just started to rapidly speed up. They even described that they called out to her. They were asking, "Pauline, where are you going? Pauline." She never answered. She never looked back until she crossed over a hill. Since that exact moment, Pauline was never seen again. And to this day, they still have no idea where she went and why she did it.
Isn't that crazy, Seekers, man? You could go in the woods and just drop off the face of the earth. Man, that's how I'm going, man. You gotta go to big group, bro. I don't want nothing to
Donald
happen.
Trump was shot this afternoon at a political rally in Pennsylvania. As you can see right here, this was moments after the shots were fired. Now, we don't have all the information right now, but obviously he is still alive. And the footage is absolutely disturbing. In the clip, you can hear multiple gunshots ring out. The audience starts screaming. Trump drops to the ground. He is covered quickly by the Secret Service agents. In the broadcast footage, he grasps his ear, so he may have been grazed by a bullet up there. Like I said, we don't have all the information. This is a developing story, but this isn't the first time that someone has tried to assassinate a president or former president. In 1912, an assassin attempted to end the life of Teddy Roosevelt as he was on the campaign trail. This man was former salon keeper John Schrank, and he would later claim that William McKinley's ghost had visited him in a dream and told him to avenge him for his assassination. Teddy Roosevelt, after being shot, continued with his speech, even as he profusely bled through the front of his shirt, and while he didn't end up getting elected that year, doctors at the time said that it was safer for him to keep the bullet inside his body than attempt to remove it. So, for the rest of his life, he carried on with a bullet lodged in his chest. Then in 1981, someone attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan. This photo was actually taken just moments before the shots were fired. 3 people were injured in this attack, but nobody died. And obviously, as you guys probably already know, Ronald Reagan survived. He was in critical condition when he was rushed to the hospital, but nobody ended up passing away from this assassination attempt. The guy who did it was named John Hinckley Jr., and weirdly enough, he had been obsessed with actress Jodie Foster after watching the film Taxi Driver, and he claimed that he had carried out the assassination attempt in an attempt to impress her. And interestingly enough, he just signed a record deal last year and will be releasing a folk album soon.
Really?
What's going on with Aubrey Wyatt?
The hell?
Aubrey was a 13-year-old girl who went to Ocean Springs Middle School in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. In September of 2023, Aubrey took her own life after being bullied by a group of 4 girls. Even after Aubrey's death, those bullies continued to harass her and bully her. Aubrey's mom Heather ran to social media as an outlet to talk about Aubrey and just to try to cope with everything that went on. On her account, she would talk about bullying and ultimately what it could lead up to. Although Heather did not name or threaten those 4 girls, their names and personal information ended up being shared by others. Heather was the subject of 2 separate lawsuits brought by the parents of those girls. The Jackson County judge ordered Heather to take down all of her social media accounts so she could no longer talk about Aubrey's case, and they did this so that they could protect the minors in this case. Shortly after that, Heather started a GoFundMe page to raise money to help with legal costs to be allowed to keep fighting online on Aubrey's behalf. I truly hope that Aubrey gets some kind of justice in the end.
The first person to live forever is already alive, at least according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, who explains it with irrefutable logic. It starts with someone that was born in like the past year or so. Our test subject, call him Johnny Boy. The reason Johnny or any of us age is because our cells are constantly dividing, making fresh copies of our DNA in each new cell. Our DNA is packed into chromosomes, and since DNA duplication isn't perfect, the tips of these chromosomes are slightly trimmed on every replication. Sort of like making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. The quality slightly degrades each time. To protect against this, our chromosomes have something called telomeres on their tips, which essentially contain junk DNA data that we can afford to lose. But even these telomeres are finite. They get shorter and shorter on every duplication until at some point they're fully gone. Then the cell stops dividing, gradually loses its function and withers away. The more this happens in our cells, the more we age, and our bodies experience age-related characteristics. Scientists like David Sinclair are currently getting really close to reversing this process in human cells. He's developed what he refers to a chemical cocktail that can reprogram the way our cells are read to sort of fill in the blanks from these imperfections in our DNA replication. The science behind it is quite extensive, and he ran tests on lab mice that were incredibly successful. Having mice born at the same time with one looking visibly older than the other says that human trials are planned to start within the decade, and it's just a matter of time before we start seeing success in that. So where does this live forever come from? Obviously, the first version of this cocktail won't be perfect. It may extend human life to, let's say, 150 years. Now remember our test subject, Johnny Boy? In 20 years, he'll be 20, at which time we're almost guaranteed to be undergoing human trials at the very least, if not already publicly available. This life potion is given to Johnny so that he can live until 150. The claim states that by the time Johnny is 40, we're almost guaranteed to make enough advancement to double the anti-aging cocktail so that now he can live till 300. 20 years later, when he's 60, the potion will be approved so that he can live till 500 years old. By the time he's 80, he can live till 1,000. These numbers are all arbitrary, but the general principle still holds up. Even if we start seeing diminishing returns in the improvements of this concoction, Johnny has already hacked his way into living forever. He can already live till 1,000 at this point, so even if it takes 100 more years to improving the medicine to living till, say, 2,000 years old, he'll live until then and take it, constantly outliving the improvement curve of anti-aging until they've cracked the code to the million-year potion, at which point Johnny Boy is essentially immortal, which means one of 2 things absolutely must happen in our future. 1, we colonize other planets, or 2, we stop having babies. If people are living forever and no longer dying, our population will continue to grow and just grow and grow. At which point we either need more space to put people, like other planets, or we gotta stop making people. So unless we want to sterilize the entire human race, living forever probably isn't a good idea until we figure this multi-planetary business out.
Things that show...
What do you guys think about that theory, Seekers? The age gap, but it just kept going and going and going, man. They're working on stuff, man, to make us not age no more. We live forever, trying to make us immortal. What do you guys think about that?
Show off the power of time. Part 7. Disney World has had about 58 million visitors per year since it opened in 1971. And during those visits, guests would often have to wait in lines that were organized by rope walkways. And if you look closely at the rope clips, you can see that they've started to wear down. Some have even created a new groove. And no, I'm not talking about Cusco. Next, watching waves at the shoreline might seem like a calming activity, but not if you're a resident of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Over time, the waves wore the shoreline and even took a huge chunk out of it. Now, this would usually take several years for the effects to be seen. But in the case of Green Bay, this all happened within the span of an hour.
Wow, what the hell? The power of
And
water.
lastly, we're told that tattoos are permanent, but this may not be the case. Because this guy got a tattoo of a flower on the palm of his hand. And in just 2.5 months, the tattoo mostly vanished. This is mainly because our palms experience a lot of friction from how often we rub our hands. So if you want a tattoo, you might want to avoid your palm.
Bro,
You got
the most wholesome animal on earth. Brother, if you wanted a manatee video, you could have just asked. Did you know when alligators and manatees cross paths underwater, the alligators seem to let them pass? A prehistoric sledgehammer, and they give manatees the right of way. That's how you know you got motion in the ocean. There's never been a record of a manatee attacking a human, and it might be because it's literally physically impossible. One is because their teeth are way in their mouths, and their molars designed for grinding grass, not biting. You know, if you ever get bit by a manatee, that means you were in his throat, and if you were, that means this law was for you. Some things don't need exploring, Columbus. Also, some scientists think that because adult manatees have no predators, and because they don't have to fight each other over who eats what grass, there's a lot of talk that the sea squishy is mentally incapable of feeling aggression. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I will say 3 things. 1, they don't just eat grass, they'll go pescatarian if the opportunity presents itself. 2, as fast as you think manatees are, they're faster. It might not be with malicious intent, but 1,200 pounds of anything moving like that is definitely cause to pause. And 3, last year a popular manatee named Hugh, past tense, after essentially explicit interaction with a bigger male named Buffett, tore him open like a reverse butt birth. The catch: Buffett was his brother. Yeah, that's pretty bad, but did you know manatees are also closely related to my favorite animal? They even got the same nail tech. So yeah, I'm a little biased, so I'm gonna let it slide. Especially since I'm pretty sure it wasn't aggression, but just a dangerous lack of awareness. But yeah, God bless this water blimp, and R.I.P. Hugh.
R.I.P. Hugh, bro. I didn't know manatees were related to like elephants. I saw that. We learn new things every day, Seekers, man.
Don't freak out, but we are right now entering the beginning of the end of the universe. 95% of all the stars that will ever form have already formed. And it gets even crazier than that. There is a sphere around us called the Hubble sphere. Beyond this point, everything is moving away from us faster than the speed of light due to the expansion of space itself. And how many of the galaxies do you think are outside of this sphere? 94% of all the galaxies we can see are beyond this boundary today. Meaning, no matter how hard we try, if there are aliens living in these galaxies, we will never be able to meet them. 60,000 stars pass beyond this horizon every single second. That's nearly 2 million solar systems we can no longer visit since the start of this video. This will continue until we are all alone. The universe as we know it, with all the beautiful galaxies and nebulae, will slowly fade away into darkness, and the astronomers of the future will point their telescopes everywhere, finding the same thing: darkness and silence for the rest of eternity.
Here are horrible things done by very influential people. Everyone knows Steve Jobs for founding Apple, but what most people don't know is the dark side of his personal life. He had an on and off relationship with a woman named Kristen Brennan, and this led to a messy pregnancy and a years-long paternity battle. Steve Jobs refused to help Brennan and their child financially, and she had to go on welfare. Now eventually he did help his daughter, but only because Brennan came forward about his behavior in an interview with Time magazine in 1982. Before becoming a popular kids book author, Theodore Seuss Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss, served in the animation department of the United States Army during World War II. He wrote training and propaganda films, and designed posters to get people signed up to join the army. But a lot of his work at the time made the Japanese look really horrible, and this carried on into his earlier books. And Mother Teresa helped provide healthcare to the sick and the poor, but her actions behind the scenes were questionable, to say the least. It's been reported that her care involved these people allegedly going through a forced conversion to Catholicism, which involved children being baptized without their parents' consent. She also allegedly hid the actions of priests who were behaving inappropriately around children, and used charity funds for her own medical care. Yeah, this is not what Jesus would do.
This teacher was caught doing it with an 8th grade student, and apparently it was almost daily. The kid was 13 years old, and now she will serve 10 years in prison. This happened in Texas. The teacher behind me, her name is Alexandria Vera. She's 25 years old, and this 13-year-old got her pregnant. She stated the relationship happened in the Instagram DMs, and his family apparently approved of this relationship. The judge and the school district said that they want their teachers to teach students, not put their hands all over their students. She was originally going to get 30 years in prison, but the judge said, I don't think she's that bad, and gave her 10 years. Apparently this relationship blossomed in 2015 around summertime. The boy kept advancing, she kept denying, but eventually she gave in apparently. Prosecutors said, based on evidence, they did it daily for 9 months straight. And apparently during the entire ordeal, to get away with this, she told her neighbors that the boy was her brother. And now it gets even weirder. She even moved his father in with her so she could pretend she was dating the father when in reality she was the kid. This was kind of a mask. She was also paying for the family's groceries and phone bill. This kid literally had a sugar mama. Now, Alexandria Vera has a 6-year-old daughter that even called the 13-year-old kid her dad. What an interesting case. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're from Houston, Texas, did you hear about this case around you guys? As always, these videos are for informational purposes only. Once again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I definitely feel like she should have served life for this. She knew exactly what she was doing, but the court system was pretty lenient on her.
I may get caught right away. Basically, if I get caught, I'm just going to shoot myself. So, I mean, I could basically be dead in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I don't know the chance at this point.
The video you just saw was made by murderer Peter Keller, who in 2012 murdered his wife and daughter before taking his own life. Now, in the lead up to murdering his family, Peter actually made a series of disturbing vlogs. He took a handy cam out with him into the woods and showed him preparing for something. He actually was creating an underground bunker stocked with all sorts of supplies like candy and beans. And during these videos, he talks to the camera very candidly, and it's some really disturbing stuff. The videos offer a glimpse into the mind of a killer who's on edge. He didn't know at the time whether or not he could actually follow through with murdering his wife and daughter, but unfortunately, he did. On April 22nd, 2012, after constructing the bunker in the woods unbeknownst to his family, Peter shot both his wife, Lynette, and his daughter, Kayleen, in the face with a silenced weapon before he set his house on fire. He then fled to the underground bunker and was able to evade capture by the police for a whopping 6 days. But once authorities figured out where Peter was, they surrounded the bunker with a SWAT team, and that's when he fired the fatal shot into his own head, taking his own life. In his video recordings, Peter talks about how it'll be exciting to live out in the bunker, and he discusses his fantasy of robbing banks and pharmacies and living on the run. But his run didn't last that long, and he left behind so many questions and a trail of blood and sadness. If you want to hear more stories like this, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife Courtney. It's available now on all streaming platforms.
People who are 1 in a million, part 2. This is Gary Turner, but he's better known as the Elastic Man. He has a medical condition that causes his skin to be so stretchy that he can stretch the skin from his neck over his mouth. Next is Nanya Su, who's a boy with perfect night vision. His parents both have brown eyes, but he has blue eyes that glow when a light is shined. He claims that it's hard to see during the day, but while everyone sees this at night, this is what he sees. This is Paul Carrison, the real-life Papa Smurf. To fix his skin condition, he would drink silver and rub it on his skin every day, causing him to turn irreversibly blue. Finally, this man came into the hospital with severe chest pain, and doctors were shocked when they discovered he had 2 hearts, and he had suffered a double heart attack.
Whoa. Pattern.
This truck driver took the life of 5 people because he was distracted on TikTok. On the morning of January 12, 2023, 36-year-old Danny Tyner was driving on Interstate 10 in Arizona when he drove his tractor trailer in to stop the traffic. This scene is so difficult to look at, but basically his truck sandwiched 2 other cars with another big truck at the front. These are the 5 victims that lost their lives on that day, and when Danny was asked what happened, he said that he looked down for a couple of seconds because he got a notification on his work tablet, and when he looked back up, there was not enough time to brake. But that wasn't true. When his phone was analyzed, it showed that he was actively using TikTok when the crash happened. Now, what I found disturbing was that during his interaction with police, he didn't seem too fazed. He was eventually charged with manslaughter and was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison for each count of negligent homicide, which totaled to 22.5 years.
This is the tragedy.
Man, I'm telling you guys, when you out driving, man, just do not be informed, man. Like I said, social media is a distraction, man. That's basically what it was made for. So why would you even attempt to even like look at it while you're driving, bro? That's just doesn't make sense to me. Look at the result of what happened, man. Multiple senses, man, because you just wanted to scroll on TikTok, man. TikTok cannot be, well, we know it's that addicting, man, where you just want to keep scrolling and scrolling, but you drive and you don't have that luxury.
Tragic story of the Boy Scout who made his entire neighborhood radioactive. Nicknamed the Nuclear Boy Scout, David Hahn was a teenager from Michigan who was obsessed with nuclear radiation. When he was only 15, David attempted to build a nuclear reactor in his backyard shed, using radioactive material from household items including vintage clocks, smoke detectors, and gun sights. Within 2 years, David had built a functioning reactor which gave off enough radiation to be detected throughout his entire neighborhood.
Damn.
David was soon caught by police when they found hazardous materials in his car during a routine stop and thought he was building an atomic bomb. When David's shed was raided by the EPA, they determined that his project had created dangerous levels of radiation, leading them to dismantle the building and classify it as hazardous waste. This mugshot from 2006 shows David covered in sores as a result of his extensive exposure to radiation. This, combined with continuous legal and mental health issues, led to David's early passing at the age of 39 from an accidental overdose.
Wanted to become like
Genetic
Adam Man or something.
Superpowers, Part 2. The Super Coffee Drinker, BDNF. Carriers of this gene remain completely unaffected to the effects of caffeine from coffee, and can often easily get a night's sleep after drinking a cup. The perfect memory gene, HSAM. If you are lucky enough to be born with this gene, you will have almost a perfect memory. However, it's extremely rare with only 25 confirmed cases. The Super Sprinter gene, ACTN3. People with these genes are able to run extra fast, as these genetics give your muscles a higher flexing rate, which gives them more explosive power.
Speed
the
got
alcohol
that.
immunity gene, ALDH2. Having this super rare gene will mean you will never be able to experience being drunk with your friends, and you might have a lot of explaining to do, as it gives you total immunity from the effects of being drunk.
Imagine if everybody had that, the world would be a safer place, man. Everybody's immune to alcohol. Whew. And the speed definitely got the freaking sprinter gene, bro. I know what I'm talking about. He's too fast. That's the only explanation.
This is how rare your body is compared to the rest of the world. Only 10% of people have something called Darwin's tubercle. It's this little bump on the outside of your ear. And it's said that people who have this are better at sensing voice tonality. 10% of people also have what's called Morton's toe. This is where your big toe is shorter than the toe next to it. Only 26% of people have a narrator inside their head. Most people don't hear a voice when they think. What's even more rare is only 5% of people have their tongues tied to their mouth. I thought everyone had this. Everyone flares their nostrils subconsciously, but only 30% of people can do it on command. Less than 1% of people have unbreakable bones, making you basically superhuman. Only about 35% of people can gleek, and only 1% can do it on command. And gleeking is when you squirt saliva from underneath your tongue.
Any secretary, can you guys gleek, bro? I've seen that before. I've always wanted to know what that was, man. I finally got an answer. It's called gleeking, bro. Shoot saliva through your tongue. That's a very, I guess, rare skill set. You got any gleekers, man, in the comments? Oh, that's insane, bro.
This incident has made people on the internet so upset because this woman went up to a teen and pulled down her skirt because she thought it was too short. Even if you think this skirt is too short, I think we can all agree that you cannot go up to a child and touch them. The teen said that this woman approached her from behind and basically put her hand in her area. This woman, who is a 49-year-old Ida Lorenzo, said to the girl and her friends, "I happen to work for the state, and if I have to see your cheeks hanging out again, I will call CPS."
I happen to work for the state, and if I have to watch your cheeks hanging out again, I will call CPS.
Now, let's be be real for a second. If this was a man who did this to a young girl, police would be called immediately and there would be no excuses. They were waiting at a restaurant to be seated and she basically felt like it was inappropriate for this young girl to be dressed like this in front of everyone. Which, if you feel that way, then you can leave. You should never be putting your hands on anyone. She was eventually charged with sexual battery, which I'm glad, because you can't be putting your hands on anyone, especially kids.
People who are 1 in a million.
Explained it
This girl's
perfectly.
name is Zhang Rufeng, and she is over 100 years old. But a few years ago, something strange happened. She started growing a horn on her head. At first, it started off small, but now it's grown up to 6 centimeters in length. But the craziest part is, she's actually starting to grow a second horn on the other side. And doctors have offered to remove it from her head, but she refuses. Before I show you the craziest one, I just found a way you can find your celebrity lookalike, and apparently I look like Mr. Beast. If you want to know who your celebrity lookalike is, just press this link in the comments. Next up is Nong Yasoi, and he has perfect night vision. And the strange part about this is both his parents have brown eyes, but he has blue eyes. When everyone else sees darkness, he sees perfectly in the middle of the night.
The rarest things found on Earth. This is a red diamond, and it is one of the rarest material known to man. Because of that, they are way more expensive than normal diamonds. This tiny one is worth around $25 million.
Damn.
And this is a corpse flower. It's basically a giant flower that smells like rotting flesh, and it can only be found in remote areas in Indonesia. Imagine having one of these in your garden. And this small and beautiful sea creature is a blue dragon. It's only a few inches big, but it eats deadly jellyfish every day for food.
The more you know. I want that freaking red diamond.
A Russian
You
scientist
gotta find
injected
it.
himself with this ancient bacteria to see what would happen. Dr. Anatoly Brushkov discovered bacteria deep within the permafrost of Siberia that was 3.5 million years old, and somehow it was still alive. It was named Bacillus F, and after doing some experiments on it, he realized the bacteria not only seemed to be immune to aging, but also appeared to have a life-extending effect on almost every organism it touched. He tested the strain on female mice, who were able to continue reproducing into old age, much older than the average mice could, and when he exposed it to crops, they grew faster and were more frost resistant. The town of Yakut, Siberia, close to where this bacteria was found, also happens to be one of the coldest human settlements on Earth, with their population reporting longer lifespans than average humans, perhaps due to Bacillus F leaking into their water supply. Dr. Brushkov was so convinced he said "F it" and injected himself with the ancient bacterium to test it out firsthand. 2 years later, he reported dramatic improvements to his general health, claiming to need less sleep, working longer hours, and just having more energy in his day-to-day life. He also allegedly hasn't gotten sick since he injected himself with it, with him and his colleagues starting to call it the elixir of life. Dr. Brushkov did this in 2013 and claims to be in the best health of his life today. And I'm sure Big Pharma loves the idea of a miracle life potion that would potentially lose them billions of dollars a year in revenue, so we definitely should not question any articles that debunk this find. To be fair, these effects aren't exactly 100% confirmed and could very well be a placebo effect, but that sure didn't stop others from hopping on the Bacillus F bandwagon. German actress Manouche began self-medicating the bacteria and reported being able to go for longer runs, feeling less cold in the winter, and her skin just feeling softer and younger. Brushkov and his team insist the effects of Bacillus F are clear and significant, although they admit they're not yet sure why it has the effect it does. But if they can manage to isolate the gene responsible for the positive benefits of the bacteria, they may have just discovered the ultimate elixir of life. As long as there isn't, you know, a whole ass industry with infinite money that tries to stop it.
The elixir of life. I gotta believe that, man. Like I said, it could be a placebo effect, but I mean, if you can inject yourself with like a million years old bacteria, you have to be pretty sure to do that. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. Go down that rabbit hole.
Toys Ever, Part 51. Mr. Bucket, released in 1990, discontinued twice, and brought back. But what was the problem? Well, the shape of the mouth didn't help. But the only thing they actually changed were the words in the jingle. A certain part they decided to cut out.
I'm Mr. Bucket. I'm Mr. Bucket. Commercials in my top. I'm Mr. Bucket. Out of my mouth, I'm Mr.
What the
was always in chat rooms, and she would always post about how she wanted someone to SA her and take her life. In those chat rooms, she ended up talking to Robert Frederick Glass of North Carolina, and the two just hit it off. Robert told Sharon he would fulfill her fantasies, and they exchanged over 900 emails. She explained to Robert that she wanted him to torture her while they were intimate and then to take her life. On October 13th, Sharon told her husband that she was planning to visit family and friends in Georgia. She left a note from her husband that she wasn't going to return and to not track her down. She then got into her car to make a 4-hour journey to meet Robert. She drove halfway to North Carolina and then took Amtrak to where Robert was and picked her up and then drove her to his mobile home. The pair spent 3 days together before Sharon's death. No one really knows what happened during those 3 days. Sharon's husband ended up finding the note and notifying police, and that's when we discovered the emails between Sharon and Robert on her phone. Police were watching Robert's house for a couple of days, hoping to see Sharon alive, but they never saw her exit the home, so they issued a warrant for his arrest. They took him into custody and charged him with manslaughter. While police were searching Robert's home, they found Sharon's decomposing body in a shallow grave in his backyard. Robert initially claimed that it was all an accident, but the emails told him it was
4K.
Robert pled guilty to manslaughter and he was only sentenced to 4 years in prison. 2 years into Robert's sentence, he ended up suffering from a fatal heart attack. He was actually scheduled to be released from prison in just a few weeks.
Extinct animals, scientists are close to reviving. Firstly, the woolly mammoth. It was believed to have gone extinct 25,000 years ago, but scientists discovered hundreds that just died recently. So they're planning to put its DNA inside African elephants, and they expect to bring them back in the next 5 years. Next, dodo birds were hunted to extinction 400 years ago, but a preserved head was recently discovered. By mixing that DNA with a maimed pigeon, dodo birds should be coming back in 15 years. Finally, expect to see saber-toothed tigers outside soon, because scientists discovered DNA preserved in tar pits, and they plan to combine it with African lions. So this 10-inch tooth beast should be coming back in 10 years.
That's throwing off the environment, man. They shouldn't be doing that.
Never slice tomatoes this way. So when this guy noticed that his boss was slicing tomatoes one by one, wasting a lot of time, he decided to show him a trick that everyone should know. He took a plate, put a few tomatoes on it, covered them with another plate, and in one move, he sliced more tomatoes than his boss in an hour.
This pedophile artist still has an incredibly successful career after he was convicted. Meet Nobuhiro Watsuki. So Nobuhiro is from Japan. He was born in Tokyo, and he started drawing from a very early age. Eventually, Nobuhiro began publishing his manga. He started winning awards and began making a name for himself in anime. Now, a lot of people will recognize this guy's art, his works, but his most popular work has to be Rurouni Kenshin. I totally said that wrong, I'm sure. For decades, Nobuhiro was one of the biggest manga artists and authors in all of Japan. Like I said, receiving a lot of awards. But in 2017, Japanese police raided Nobuhiro's office. And inside of his office, they found 100 DVDs. Each one of these DVDs contained CP or CSAM. And all of these videos and photos featured children in their early teens. I mean, absolutely disgusting stuff. But what did the authorities in Japan do after finding this? Was he given a long prison sentence? 100 DVDs is a lot. Nope, he was fined about $1,500. That's right, he served 0 time in jail or prison and had to pay $1,500. And then shortly afterwards, his serialization of his manga continued, basically as if nothing had ever happened. Now, I'm not really a manga anime guy, but I'm sure that a lot of people on here are, and will definitely recognize this work. And I'm sure that a lot of the people that read this stuff don't know the history of the author. And in my mind, somebody who's convicted of a crime like this should never be supported in any sort of way. Financially, artistically, it doesn't matter. This is the type of guy that should be cut off from society. But he was pretty unrepentant, obviously, a $1,500 fine. I would definitely myself encourage Japanese authorities to go check this guy's hard drives nowadays. But as for now, he's pretty much untouched.
Have you ever seen a Mickey Mouse gas mask? These were made to calm terrified children. About a month after Pearl Harbor, Walt Disney was in Washington, D.C. to design and discuss Mickey Mouse gas masks for children. 1,000 of these were produced and given away to key members of Congress to help support the project. At the time, President Roosevelt even received one. Walt Disney also came up with drawing designs for Pluto and Three Little Pigs gas masks, although these ones never reached production. They attempted to keep the fun element in something as grim as gas raids. During these raids, children would be persuaded to regard the whole thing as a game.
That's crazy, man. A freaking Mickey Mouse gas mask. Makes you wonder, man, what other freaking, I guess, companies and stuff made things in that time. But like I said, there was only 1,000 of them, so obviously it was a limited number. That was just a dark time, man, in history. Kids had to think it was a game.
Curtain number 1 is... Correct! Wait.
That's an edit.
You don't remember what she looks like?
You call them out.
Here are the craziest things to ever happen at Walmart. So one day, an 18-year-old was craving milk. So he decided to steal not 1, not 2, but 26 gallons of milk from Walmart. Oh, and he did this dressed as a cow. And if that doesn't sound weird enough to you, you'd be surprised to learn that even though he made himself stand out in the cow costume, he managed to not get caught on the spot. Next, on Black Friday in 2013, a customer and his son were freaking out in Walmart because they thought that his ex-wife was possessed by a demon. And so they locked her in their car and set up an exorcism in the parking lot by throwing sacred oil at her, which might have been the reason why they ended up divorcing. Also, back in 2013, a 16-year-old was going into labor, and she gave birth in a Cannon City Walmart bathroom. Now, there was panic for a moment because the baby wasn't breathing, but luckily, one of the store's employees were CPR certified and they revived the baby. I guess Walmart really can help you live better. And finally, in 2011, at a Walmart in South Carolina, customers witnessed a man named Avery Blandon end the life of his wife, Lilia Blandon, while she was working inside the store's bank. Avery stabbed her multiple times, and she sadly passed away on the way to the hospital. He then tried to escape the scene, but he crashed his SUV and was caught by police. But what's weird is that the store stayed open during the investigation, only in Walmart.
Did you guys see this video of these two planes that almost crashed into each other in midair? It was all caught by this police officer's dash cam. This all happened last month in Syracuse, New York, when a Delta airplane was cleared to take off, while at the same time an American airline airplane was cleared to land in the same runway. So the Delta airplane was on its way to LaGuardia Airport, while the American airline plane was arriving from Washington Reagan Airport. What's crazy is that these two planes were only 725 feet away from each other in the air, but from the ground's point of view, they looked so much closer. At one point, the two planes were side by side, and that should not be happening for obvious reasons, which is why the job of an air traffic controller is so important. This error was completely on the air traffic controller, who shouldn't have cleared both airplanes at the same time. It's still unclear why and how this happened, but they're still investigating. Thankfully, both planes did not collide, and all 159 passengers are safe.
It's official.
That's insane to think about, man. Like, they were literally like that close. Like, there's like a hair off if something happened, man. Like she said, it was the air trafficker's job. That they need to, whoever was there that day, they had to get their freaking job reviewed or something like that, because they obviously was not paying attention. Flights, man, one of the most scariest things, man, that can happen. Fun fact, I've never been on an airplane before yet. I've never flown yet, so that just raises my anxiety.
Aliens exist. These are the remains of non-human creatures. They were presented to a hearing in Mexico's Congress, which is investigating unidentified anomalous phenomena. The hearing was told that the specimens were found in Peru in 2017 and apparently are 700 and 1800 years old. People online were quick to compare the likeness to that of E.T. from the movie. One user wrote, "No way, they can't be that small. Those are mutated cats." But looking at a picture that was released of their skull, this is no cat, which is eerily similar to a skull they found in 2021. What's worse is experts testified under oath that one of them is seen to have eggs inside it, and both specimens were said to have implants made of very rare metals. And even though the aliens are pretty small, you can tell that this is clearly something different. I ain't gonna lie, this guy looks like he doesn't want to go to work tomorrow. Let's take one last look. Do you believe in aliens?
Morbid facts.
Do you?
Part 402. George Lopez has a genetic condition that caused his kidneys to slowly deteriorate. So when he needed a new kidney in 2005, his wife Ann gave him one of her own. A couple years later, George reportedly cheated on his wife, then divorced her in 2010, all while wearing her kidney. The first scientist to observe penguins engaging in gay intercourse, grape, and necrophilia was so disturbed that he tried to obscure his findings to prevent people from knowing the truth about penguins. In 1995, a substitute school bus driver in Illinois stopped at a red light with the back part of the bus still on some train tracks. The children were screaming for her to move the bus forward as a train approached, but she was confused about what they meant. The train struck the bus at 60 miles per hour and 7 children were killed. In 2018, Gloria Williams pleaded guilty to posing as a nurse to abduct Kamaya Mobley from her mother's arms in the maternity ward. She was sentenced to 18 years in prison, the same length of time Kamaya was separated from her birth family.
People freaking out nurses now? That was a dark case, man.
In 2011,
that was not it.
4-year-old Gabby Mann was living in Seattle, Washington with her family. One day, she dropped a chicken nugget onto the ground, and before she could pick it up, a neighborhood crow swooped down and took the free lunch. And because Gabby was a messy eater, she continued to drop food everywhere she went, and so she continued to inadvertently feed these crows. She grew to really enjoy the attention, and so she started feeding them huge portions of her lunch. When Gabby's mother discovered where most of her daughter's food was going, she wasn't upset. She was just worried her daughter wasn't getting enough to eat. They would go out and buy some food just for the crows. She and her mom began feeding the crows every day. Gabby went outside one morning to refill the peanut tray when she noticed there was a small earring. Over the following few weeks, when more and more little trinkets started showing up, Gabby's mom installed a camera. She was amazed to see the crows would come in and they would eat their food, and then they would leave behind these shiny little trinkets. But the crows' most astonishing gift came the following year. Gabby's mother was an avid photographer, and one day she was out by herself photographing a bald eagle. She managed to drop a lens cover to one of her cameras. That night, when she got back to her house, she couldn't believe what was sitting there. She ran back inside and pulled up the footage from the bird camera, and there it was, a crow coming into the yard with the lens cap in its mouth. This behavior is very significant because it means the relationship between the crows and Gabby and her mom was not a transactional one. Today, Gabby and her mother still feed the crows every single day, and the crows still love Gabby and her mother.
Okay,
it's like good karma coming back to you.
A pharmaceutical company that's trialing a new groundbreaking age reversal pill had such good results that the local news wanted to run a story on them. But before they even could publish the video, the chairman and CEO died. You see, 6 months ago, this 12-year-old German Shepherd was near death. He had terminal cancer, was operated on, and his prognosis wasn't looking good. The dog's caretaker knew that an age reversal trial was being conducted on dogs, and so she asked if Zeus could be a part of it due to his dire situation. The pill's aim is to lengthen telomere caps on human stem cells, because as part of the aging process, our telomeres shorten, which increases the chance of age-related diseases and, of course, death.
If you can increase telomeres, you can reproduce stem cells and keep repairing things so that you can get literally younger.
They said Looking at drugs, preclinical data from a previous in vitro human cell study, it showed that the medication lengthened telomeres by almost 200%. Zeus was granted access to the medication in April, and his caretaker said that she saw results almost immediately.
He's doing marvelously. He goes out to our pool and he swims and he has fun and he plays with the tennis ball.
A recent scan showed that the cancer in his body had completely disappeared, and the results were so remarkable that she asked for more to give another 12-year-old dog that could hardly walk due to arthritis. And just last week, she said that he had started galloping and running again. But then, despite all of that, hit us with this.
And we are sad to report that since this interview was conducted, Dr. Christopher Chapman has recently passed away.
On the company's website, they announced his passing, saying, out of respect and privacy for Dr. Chapman's family, details of the 71-year-old's passing will not be made available. And then added that to support the new chairman and CEO, 3 telomere directors have voluntarily resigned. Human trials for this drug are planned for mid-2025.
The rarest things in the world.
What do you think happened?
Akita, only 10 left in the wild. Rarest gem on earth, Painite, worth $60,000 per carat. Rarest poker hand, the royal flush, 1 in 655,000 chance. Rarest element on earth, as the time, less than 1 gram on earth exists. Rarest car, Ferrari 250 Gran Turismo.
Gran Turismo? Didn't they make a movie about that?
Okay, this is getting hard to believe, but there has just been reports of a second wave of explosions in Lebanon, but this time it's people's walkie-talkies. So yesterday, Hezbollah fighters' pagers, today, their radios. Initial reports are saying that the most recent wave of explosions have caused cars and houses to be set on fire, and there were even reports, this one's crazy, that one exploded at a funeral of someone who died from yesterday's explosions. And while I'm on the topic of explosions, you're going to see a lot of reports of people saying explosive devices found at Trump rally, even going as far as saying third assassination attempt, question mark. Let me just save you some time. That is a false report. There's going to be a lot of corrections. Don't worry about it. I'll keep you updated.
Imagine being kidnapped, locked in a basement, and then when the police come, they just leave you there to die. Back in the 1980s, many girls in Belgium were just randomly vanishing without a trace. This guy right here, Mark Detroit, was the guy who was doing all of this. Now in his early years, he had a lot of relationship issues and ended up marrying his second wife, Michelle Martin, this woman right here. What these two would do together genuinely will make you feel sick. Major trigger warning, if you're easily scared, please just keep on scrolling right now. This is your final one. On June the 7th, 1985, they took their first victim, who was an 11-year-old girl walking home from school, which they kidnapped. They took her back to their place, armed her, and then took a photo of her after this before just releasing her. Now they did this tons of times before actually being caught by the police the first time, but then it got far worse. So they were both arrested but got a very, very short sentence and were out in no time. Mark was released in 1992 after serving literally 3 years in prison for all of this. Of course, the reason they were caught the first time was because the victims they let go free had reported them, so they built this literal dungeon in the basement of the house where they would keep people. He went on to kidnap at least 6 people in the space of a couple of years and left them all in here. At this time, the news was going crazy in the local area because tons of girls were going missing. No one knew where they were, but they were all in here. Now, even crazier again, Mark's own mother actually reported him to the police and they still didn't go round. And she even told the police that he literally had girls captive in the basement right now and the police did nothing. Not long after this, though, Mark was actually arrested for something completely separate, stealing a car, and he told his wife she would have to keep the girls in the basement alive by watering them and feeding them. Yeah. Now, by far, the most angering part of this whole story is that the police finally went round and did a check on the house. He literally heard children screaming, begging for help, and they walked out. They did nothing. Because apparently it sounded like the screams were coming from outside, and just kids playing a prank or something. Like, what? There was even undeveloped camera film on the side here, which they just didn't develop, but if they did, they would have seen literally everything. Now apparently this woman was too scared to go into the basement and look after the girls, so tragically passed away. When he finally got out, he started again, and more girls started vanishing, until eventually someone came forward after spotting him in a van, basically while in the act. He then confessed, showed the police the whole basement and everything, and even showed them where some bodies of people were. He also reportedly had another accomplice that they had a disagreement, and he unalived him and buried him in the house as well. After the whole case came to a close, she got 30 years in jail and he got a life.
These are the world's freakiest sea animals.
Okay.
In July 2022, people in Chile gathered around to see what a fishing boat caught off their shore. The creature was 16 feet long, and the video got 20 million views when it was posted online. Because people were debating whether or not this was an actual sea monster. But I'm sad to say it's not. This is an oarfish, a fish that typically lives about 3,000 feet below the surface. Next, at Laguna Beach in May 2021, people were shocked when they saw a terrifying football-looking fish washed up on the shore. This was a Pacific football fish, a fish that usually lives 3,000 feet under the surface. Basically, remember that terrifying light bulb fish from Finding Nemo?
Yep.
That's this guy. They're actually so rare that even marine biologists know very little about this species and what causes them to wash up on shores. And in 2022, a fisherman named Sean Bailey was sailing around off the coast of San Diego when he spotted a weird ghost-looking creature floating on the surface of the water. But after a few minutes, it started moving again because it was just sunbathing. This is a mola mola, or an ocean sunfish. These fish live 660 feet below the ocean surface and prey on jellyfish, and then warm up by sunbathing on top of the surface. And this allows seagulls to eat the parasites off its body. So for them, it's kind of like a free trip to the spa.
These villagers dig up their dead family members every 3 years, and you won't believe why. These people are from a village in Indonesia, and during their Manim festival, they get their ancestors' corpses, clean them, then put them all out to dry, and dress them in new clothes as a ritual. And the reason is because they believe they're showing them love and respect.
This is why you should be scared of mirrors. Reddit user Liberated Man said that when he was about 12 years old, he woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. He walked across the hall to the bathroom, hit the lights, and was about to reach for the toilet when he glanced up and saw a face in the mirror. It wasn't his face. He said that it was as if someone was on the other side, standing to the right, with their face right next to the glass, staring at him. He only saw it for the briefest moment, but it seared into his brain. He screamed and ran out to find his dad. His dad, of course, investigated and then calmed him down, or tried to. They had a prayer session because he was so freaked out. Eventually, he went back to sleep. He said that fast forward to his 30s, he had forgotten all about the event until one night, while visiting, his dad quietly brings it up. He said, "Remember that one time you saw a face in the mirror?" It suddenly came back to him in a rush of a memory, sending a chill down his spine. He said, "Yeah, I remember." And then his dad said, "Well, sometimes I think about that night." He looked down at the floor with a serious expression, and then he said, "I saw it too." He went on to describe exactly what Reddit user Liberated Man had seen. Neither of them have any idea what it was. Apparently, when his dad went to investigate, he saw it and had a freak out of his own. And the prayer session was as much for his own nerves as it was his son's.
So they both saw the same thing. So they weren't tripping there. And a Reddit user saw the same thing too, so maybe those two stories are linked. It's a creepy rabbit hole you gotta get into. That's an edit, man. Call them out.
Yep! Scientists just did something you are not going to appreciate. Trust me, you're gonna want to favorite this video because this could be the start of something horrendous. Because they thought today was a brilliant day to cut open 200 million year old parasitic eggs that they found in fossilized feces. You know, dinosaur shit. They found one of the earliest predators were infested with roundworm, otherwise known as nematodes, and other parasites. I feel like I shouldn't need to say this. Don't fucking do that! I swear after 2020 we've learned nothing! And this hasn't come long after scientists revived a previously extinct ancient worm. But don't worry, that's another horror for another day. I'll be the first to say it, I do feel like we're opening Pandora's box. We revive an ancient parasite out of the good of our hearts and then it gets out of control and destroys the world. These are the parasite samples, by the way, if you wanted to see them. They are being called Morphotype 4. Bear in mind, we are nervous about permafrost melting and releasing ancient pathogens and diseases into our worlds. And now we're willingly sawing open dinosaur shit that includes a parasite. I mean, does 1 + 1 = 5? Personally, I'm not a fan of this one, so send this to a friend because they need to know what's going on. I'm terrified.
Forbidden places.
Why would we even do that, bro? With all that's going on in the world right now, we think that's a good idea to examine some parasites that probably went extinct a million years ago because it was in dinosaur crap. Now we're trying to reintroduce it. It's just gonna decimate the ecosystem, man. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why?
That you can never visit. Snake Island is an island off of the coast of Brazil.
filled with deadly snakes. Rising sea levels caused this piece of land to become an island, allowing for the snakes to flourish in their own environment. There are now up to 5 snakes every square meter, and you are not allowed to go here. In Svalbard, Norway, there is a global seed vault, aka the Doomsday Vault. It is the world's seed bank, storing samples of crops from all over the world just in case of a global catastrophe. The tomb of Qin Wang in China holds an army of warriors made of clay. It protects the burial spot of the first emperor of China who died in 210 BC, and we only discovered this tomb in 1974. Paveglia Island in Italy was used to exile hundreds of thousands of victims of the plague. It is said to be one of the most haunted places on Earth, and a dark local legend says that 50% of the soil is made up of human remains. Follow for more.
Don't go there, bro. Most haunted place in the world.
Was this the worst form of medieval punishment? If you found yourself as a prisoner in a medieval castle, you may be subject to the dungeon, torture, or even execution. But what could be worse? Well, let me tell you about the oubliette, also known as the Forgotten Room. This was a specialized type of prison in some medieval castles, perhaps for the worst of offenders. It was a narrow shaft, sometimes 8 feet deep, with only one entrance and exit, a trapdoor located on the ceiling. The shaft being so narrow that the individual would be forced to stand. They couldn't kneel, they couldn't sit, they could barely turn around. To fall alone into the oubliette would sometimes break bones. In some cases, these would even be built into the upper walls of the castle, so the victim could hear the hustle and bustle of castle life, but could not escape. Depending on the situation or individual, they might throw you some food and water if you were to be kept alive. In most cases, you were subject to stand there, starve to death, and then be devoured by vermin. The most you could do was stand there, look up at the grate, and realize you cannot escape. Oh yeah, did I also mention sometimes jagged stones would be placed at the bottom? And of course, you were also subject to stand in your own waste. Lep Castle, which is located in Ireland, had quite an active oubliette. So many skeletons were discovered in one in the 1920s that it took 3 cartloads to transport them off the property. Between the sleep deprivation, the starvation, the psychological torture, and the claustrophobia, I think this is the worst form of medieval torture.
Definitely up there, man. You just standing. Say can't bend, can't do anything. Up street all that time. That's insane. It's another edit, man. Like I said, if you guys see any edits, call them out too. We learning together.
Facts that I wish I didn't know. When you die, the last thing to go is your hearing. So as all your other mortal sensations are leaving this world, the last thing you're ever going to experience are the sounds going on around you, which very well could be like your family members crying or cheering. By the year 2050, there's going to be more plastic in the ocean than fish. When pigs get a cold, like a cough, very often they will shoot their intestines out of their anus, and farmers have to, like, stuff it back in.
Never knew that. What the hell, pigs?
Fun fact, Michel Lotito, aka Mr. Eats Everything, was a French performance artist who once ate an entire Cessna 150 airplane. Holding the Guinness World Record for strangest diet, Michel first became aware of his strange affliction when he was 9 years old, and the glass he was drinking from broke, and he began chewing on the broken glass fragments and liked them. Throughout the course of his life, he consumed 8 bicycles, 15 supermarket trolleys, 7 TV sets, 6 chandeliers, 2 beds, also a waterbed full of water, a pair of skis, a coffin, 1,600 feet of steel chain, a ton of random stuff like glasses, plates, and razor blades, and of course, a Cessna 150 airplane. He began eating the plane in 1978 and spent 2 years consuming it bite by bite, cutting the plane into edible pieces about 1 to 2 centimeters long until he finally finished his meal in 1980. To protect his stomach and intestines from getting pierced by any sharp objects, Mr. Lotito would consume a ton of mineral oil and water during his meals to help the metal, glass, or whatever else move through his system. Michel Lotito passed away in 2007 at the age of 57 from natural causes.
My man ate a whole plane. If you would have told me that a couple of days ago, I wouldn't have believed you. I'm gonna have to look him up, see what else he ate, bro. Any other world records? He had that broken many, man. Eating
These are the world's
that type of
freakiest land
things.
animals. animals. In 2022, a TikToker named Kostika uploaded a video that showed a weird-looking creature running around his backyard. Once the video went viral, wildlife experts took to the comments to explain that it was a lesser blind mole rat. And this is because of how its tiny eyes are nearly tucked under its skin. They spend most of their time underground creating tunnels with their massive teeth. In 2020 in British Columbia, a woman was walking around when she saw a bug that looked like a tarantula with wings. She then shared a photo of the bug to Facebook, where wildlife experts explained that this was a very big moth called a polyphemus moth. These moths have huge bodies, and despite their scary looks, they don't have mouths to bite. And they have a lifespan of about 2 weeks. And in 2024 in Sydney, Australia, a TikToker named Blonde heard a weird tapping sound coming from her window at night, and she went to investigate. And what she found is like something out of nightmares. At her window, a bat was tapping on the glass, trying to find a way to escape the storm. And it stayed around until the next morning, where Blonde had to call a bat expert to come remove it. But this turned out to be a non-aggressive species of a bat known as a flying fox. And they only eat fruit or flowers. They also struggle to keep warm when they're wet, which explains why it was at her window. Now I just feel sorry for the little guy.
What is the dirtiest country in the world? Well, firstly, the cleanest country in the world is Denmark. It's also labelled the most environmentally friendly. But what country is the dirtiest? In 5th place, it's Pakistan. Pakistan is home to the world's most polluted city, Lahore, and has become a major problem in Pakistan. The air is voted hazardous for breathing, and Pakistan is also voted 3rd highest for public defecation. In 4th place, it's Bangladesh. Bangladesh suffers from pollution also, mostly from vehicles, factory fumes and dust. The air quality in Dhaka, one of the world's most crowded cities, is also labelled as very poor and dangerous. The serious overpopulation in Bangladesh is also a huge factor contributing to this. In 3rd place, it's Vietnam. Vietnam is very polluted due to the transportation system and the excess cars and motorbikes on the road. The water is very polluted due to trash being thrown away and neglected, and a lot of the popular cities can be covered in litter. In 2nd place, it's Myanmar. Myanmar has suffered badly with trash pollution, but most of all, water pollution. Myanmar have a long-lasting problem with dirty water. More than anything, being a river cleaner is a job, collecting trash such as plastics and cans, then selling it, making up to $10 a day. Finally, in 1st place, it's India. India have suffered really badly from air pollution, trash and hygiene issues. It is #1 in the world for public defecation, and overpopulation has been becoming a concern for India as the country is growing at a very fast rate. Most of the lakes and rivers are poisonous and hazardous, and the pollution in some areas is very severe, making it the most polluted country on Earth. If you enjoy videos like these, please follow our page for more facts.
We learned out here today, Seekers. I didn't know, man. I didn't think India was going to be on that list. Most polluted in the world. We got to do better, man. We got to take care of our planet, bro. We only have on the Earth, man, so we got to do our best to take care of it. I wasn't expecting that. Hey, man, that's why I say these facts. I'm learning just like y'all. Edit, man. I think, man, I'm getting better at spotting the edits. Watching these videos every day with you guys.
Can you believe that this was almost the Ghostface mask for Scream? While scouting out locations for the first Scream movie, they stumbled upon a mask in an abandoned house. It was produced by a company named Fun World, and it was called the Peanut-Eyed Ghost. Well, Fun World wanted a little bit too much money for them to use their mask, so they went to the drawing boards. Here are just a few of the concepts that they drew up. Quite different, huh? They were eventually able to come to an agreement, and thus one of the most iconic horror masks of all time was born. This may look like a Wish.com Michael Myers mask, but it's actually from the original movie. 43 years ago, they painted a Captain Kirk mask white, and now we have one of the most iconic horror killers ever. I'm actually impressed with how well it held up over that long. Who is the most realistic psychopath in cinematic history? Starting in 2014, Belgian professor Samuel Liestad wanted to know which movie characters best represented psychotic traits. Over the course of 3 years, him and 10 of his friends watched over 400 movies, spanning from 1915 all the way to 2010, trying to find the best movie Psycho. Believe it or not, Norman Bates, Patrick Bateman, and Hannibal Lecter didn't even make the cut. The team believed that their traits did not quite fit the psychopath mold. They all agreed that the best movie psychopath was Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. They wrote that he seems to be effectively invulnerable and resilient to any form of emotion and humanity, and I 100% must agree. Their runners-up were Hans Beckert in the 1931 German film M, and Henry Lee Lucas in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Who is your favorite movie psychopath?
These are the safest countries to go if World War III was to start.
That's mind-blowing.
And considering the news at the moment, you might want to sit down, shut up, and listen! So favorite this video, just in case you ever need it. I hope we never do. Now, there are countries all around the world, but let's start with Argentina. Now, if this was to all break out, it's likely that the world would look similar to Terminator 2 Judgment Day at the end. It's likely that all the smoke from all of these will block out the sun, this resulting very quickly in famine and crop failure. But don't panic, because we have Argentina. In Argentina, there are an abundance of resistant crops, such as wheat. This is one of the places on Earth that actually has a chance of surviving World War III. Next up, we have one of the big ones, Switzerland. Now, aside from the fact that it is incredibly neutral when it comes to politics, it has a landlocked geography and mountainous terrain, as well as being one of the countries with an insane amount of underground bunkers. Actually, there's 26,000 of them, which are actually all very hidden, which will mean you will be very safe. As well, just in case there is an invasion, Switzerland literally has booby traps everywhere. It's actually kind of insane and awesome. Next up, we have one of the big ones, Antarctica. Now, barely anyone thinks about going there, which is why it's pretty safe. However, as you can tell, it's a bit fucking cold, so bring coats.
Yep.
Next up, we have Greenland. Now, it was in this movie, and they all survived. But on top of that, it's remote, mountainous, and politically neutral, making it kind of an ideal refuge point. And on top of that, worst case scenario, you're not too far away from the global seed vaults, which, you know, has a lot of seeds in it, so for planting, and thus food and survival. There are literally so many more countries on this list. So if you'd like me to go through more countries in a part 2, let me know. And hopefully we'll never need this video. But just in case we do send this to a friend, it could save their life one day.
One of the biggest mysteries in history has finally been solved. Alright, firstly, in 1915, explorer Ernest Shackleton and his crew set off for a voyage to explore Antarctica. However, before they could make it to Antarctica, the ship they were on, known as the Endurance, got trapped and crushed by the ice. Now, with no other options left, all of the members on board had to navigate a lifeboat hundreds of miles to safety. On this journey to safety, all of the crew survived many storms, even one being a hurricane, until they got onto a rescue boat. Even though they failed to get to Antarctica, this became a famous story because they didn't let a setback crush their spirit. But for over a century, the biggest mystery was, where did the ship end up? And believe it or not, but in 2022, the ship was actually discovered, and they were so close to where they wanted to be. It was found 2 miles underwater, and because of the frigid temperatures, it was actually pretty well preserved.
I think that's just a sign, man. Like I said, they didn't give up. They didn't stop. They literally couldn't, bro. That was their way of survival, man. They didn't give up. They didn't stop. They didn't let that crush their spirits, and they found their way home. But they was like right there, bro. Goes to show you, man. You can literally be right there. You never know, man. You know that's an edit. Stop playing with us.
A few wholesome history facts to brighten your day. In 1957, Northeast Airlines Flight 823 crashed onto Rikers Island. Prison staff and inmates alike ran to help the survivors. To acknowledge the heroic actions of the 57 inmates who helped, 30 were released and 16 got a reduced sentence. When Anthony Smith was 4 years old, he was fitted with a hearing aid, but soon became depressed and refused to wear it, saying, "Superheroes don't wear hearing aids." His mother, desperate for help, reached out to Marvel. In response, they created the superhero Blue Ear in his likeness. The zip-up cardigans that you would always see Mr. Rogers wear were actually made by his mother. She also knitted them for military troops in Pennsylvania. One of them is now located in the Smithsonian Museum. 3 completely useless yet interesting facts. Have you ever wondered why barns are typically painted red? It has nothing to do with the color itself, but for its usefulness. Long ago, different colored paints and sealers weren't an option for farmers. They needed to make sure they found or made a paint or sealer that would protect the wood on their barn. They would seal their barns with linseed oil. They would add milk, lime, and iron oxide. Rust would kill fungi and mosses and worked as a great sealant. It also turned the mixture red in color. Have you ever wondered why there's cotton inside of some pill bottles? The tradition of doing so started in the early 1900s when Bayer would put cotton in their bottles to prevent breakage of their pills during shipment. And finally, what is the purpose of putting your phone in airplane mode when you're riding on a plane? I mean, there's absolutely no way that could cause a problem while you're on an airplane, but it actually could. You see, airplane mode disables all wireless and cellular signals coming from the phone. Believe it or not, those signals could actually interfere with important...
Let's talk a little bit about what's going on.
Airplane mode is a must on the plane.
A lot of the locals there who believe what they're watching is a serial killer on the streets. Somebody who is roaming the city undetected, and it all ties back to Lady Bird Lake and all of the bodies that continue to appear in that lake under very strange circumstances. So they think that this is connected to the nightlife on Rainy Street. Thought being that a lot of young men, while they're out at bars, are getting profiled at these bars. The suspicion is that their drinks are getting drugged and then they are wandering off on foot. Now, pathway-wise, they eventually make their way to Lady Bird Lake, but somebody is following these men. The suspicion being that they are drowned in the lake and that the bodies are recovered. However, there is somebody who is suspected to be a survivor of an alleged attack. So what he remembered was that he was definitely drugged while he was out at a bar and then was on foot. While on foot, he was then crossing a bridge near Lady Bird Lake where he was pushed off by someone. Whoever that mysterious figure was who did push him off the bridge, it's an unknown. And I would say the bigger question is, why are the Austin PD not investigating this?
They need to, but that's what I say, man. I'll cover your drink. If you walk away, if you have to go to the bathroom and you come back to that drink, might as well just dump it out, get a new drink, man. You don't know what's in it. Learned that very early on, Seekers. It ain't worth it.
This is the case of the girl that vanished into thin air. Her name is Yuki Onishi. On April 29th of 2005, 5-year-old Yuki was out celebrating Greenery Day with her mother. It's a national holiday in Japan, and what they do is they go out, they celebrate nature, and they collect bamboo shoots. So Yuki, her mom, and 60 other people were out doing this. Yuki was so excited that she found her first bamboo shoot, she showed her mother, and then she ran off to find more. That's when she disappeared and was never seen from again. When they realized that she was nowhere to be found, they actually brought in search dogs and the police. This is where it gets really strange. The dogs followed her scent to the middle of the forest and then just stopped. The scent stopped in the middle of the forest as if she had just disappeared into thin air from that spot.
Whoa.
To this day, she has never been found and no one knows what happened. If you want to hear some theories, come back for part 2.
Creepy last words people said right before dying.
Scary.
Registered nurse Shirley Smith said that she had a very rich patient who was a true Satanist that was dying of cancer. The patient had upside-down crosses and a Satan's Bible by her bedside. Shirley said that she will never forget what happened. It was the middle of the summer, and yet it was so cold and dark in her room that you couldn't even stand it, even in the middle of the day. She said that it got so evil feeling in there that she had to call a priest to pray with her and her aides before they would even enter the room. When the patient passed away, she had not spoken in over 24 hours. And then all of a sudden, she sat straight up and said, "Satan, take me." And then she fell back on the bed. Shirley said that after she passed, the room got bright and extremely warm. Shockingly, when they moved the patient's body, they had to get rid of the mattress because where her body had been, it looked burnt. And the most horrible smell was emanating from the mattress cover. Needless to say, Shirley went to confession immediately because she did not want an evil spirit around her. A nurse said that one of their patients had a serious recurrence and had to be admitted. Over the course of several nights, he had become quite upset during rounds. He kept asking for his wallet, saying that he had to pay the ferryman. The medical student on rotation in the department took a quarter out of his pocket and put it in the patient's hand. The patient then dropped the coin into the cup on his bedstand and calmed down. Later that night, he passed away quietly. The nurse asked what happened. The medical student, who remembered his Greek mythology, said that the patient had to pay Charon, the ferryman, to be taken across the river Styx. A nurse said that he was doing rounds at a hospital. There was one two-patient room, and one of the patients was a very loud and confused woman who could be quite a handful. On this particular night, she had a roommate who had passed away shortly before the nurse entered the room. She was DNR, so there was no code blue. When he entered the room, he noticed that the elderly lady, who was usually very loud and confused, was sitting quietly with her hands crossed neatly upon her lap. Something was different, and there was this look of serenity on her face. She asked him in a voice that seemed much younger and clearer than before, "Did you see them, young man? They're so beautiful." He said, "No, ma'am, there's no one else here." She said, "They're right next to you, talking to Mrs. Banneker. The angels. They're so beautiful." He said that he instantly felt every hair of his body stand up, and an electric tingle course up and down his spine. "They're not here for me this time," she said sadly.
Man. He was in the presence of angels. You never know, man, what another person can see or what they can pick up. They can feel that type of energy around you. Whew. YouTube, that's it, man, for this video for you guys today. If you guys made it with me to the end of the video, you're a true seeker, seeking the truth. Like, really appreciate the support, man. Like I said, make sure you guys like the video, comment down below, subscribe, hit that post notification bell. You guys gonna catch you in the next one, man. I'm out. Peace, YouTube.